Hello and welcome back to my blog, Tea Leaves by Francis S. Drake. The application of the East India Company to the British government for relief from pecuniary embarrassment occasioned by the great falling off in its American tea trade afforded the ministry just the opportunity it desired to fasten taxation upon the American colonies. The company asked permission to export tea to British America free of duty, offering to allow government to retain 6 pence per pound as an exportation tariff if they would take off the 3% duty in America. This gave an opportunity for conciliating the colonies in an honorable way and also to procure double the amount of revenue. But no, under the existing course of policy, this request was, of course, inadmissible. At this time, the company had in its warehouses upwards of 17 millions of pounds, in addition to which the importations of the current year were expected to be larger than usual. To such a strait was it reduced that it could neither pay its dividends nor its debts. By an act of Parliament passed on May 10, 1773, with little debate and no opposition, the company, on exportation of its teas to America, was allowed a drawback of the full amount of English duties, binding itself only to pay the 3 pence duty on its being landed in the English colonies. In accordance with this act, the Lords Commissioners of the Treasury gave the company a license, August 20, 1773, for the exportation of 600,000 pounds, which were to be sent to Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Charleston, South Carolina, the principal American ports. As soon as this became known, applications were made to the directors by a number of merchants in the colonial trade, soliciting a share of what promised to be a very profitable business. The establishment of a branch East India House in a central part of America whence the tea could be distributed to other points was suggested. The plan finally adopted was to bestow the agency on merchants in good repute in the colonies who were friendly to the administration and who could give satisfactory security or obtain the guarantee of London houses. The company and its agents viewed this matter solely in a commercial light. No one supposed that the Americans would oppose the measure on the ground of abstract principle. The only doubt was as to whether the company could, merely with the 3-penny duty, compete successfully with the smugglers who brought tea from Holland. It was hoped they might, and that the difference would not compensate for the risk in smuggling. But the Americans at once saw through the scheme, and that its success would be fatal to their liberties. The new Tea Act, by again raising the question of general taxation, diverted attention from local issues and concentrated it upon one which had been already fully discussed and on which the popular verdict had been definitely made up. Right and justice were clearly on their side. It was not that they were poor and unable to pay, but because they would not submit to wrong. The amount of the tax was paltry and had never been in question. Their case was not, as in most revolutions, that of a people who rose against real and palpable oppression. It was an abstract principle alone for which they contended. They were prosperous and happy. It was upon a community at the very height of its prosperity that this insidious scheme suddenly fell, and it immediately aroused a more general opposition than had been created by the Stamp Act. The measure, says the judicious English historian Massey, was beneficial to the colonies, but when was a people engaged in a generous struggle for freedom deviated by an insidious attempt to practice on their selfish interests? The ministry believed, wrote Franklin, that 3 pence on a pound of tea, of which one does not perhaps drink 10 pounds a year, is sufficient to overcome all the patriotism of an American. The measure gave universal offense, not only as the enforcement of taxation, but as an odious monopoly of trade. To the warning of Americans that their adventure would end in loss, and to the scruples of the company, Lord North answered peremptorily, "It is to no purpose making objections. The king will have it so. The king means to try the question with America." How absurd was this assertion of prerogative, and how weak the government was seen when, on the first forcible resistance to his plans, the king was compelled to apply to the petty German states for soldiers. Lord North believed that no difficulty could arise, as America, under the new regulation, would be able to buy tea from the company at a lower price than from any other European nation, and that buyers would always go to the cheapest market. Before receiving intelligence of the passage of the new act in the summer of 1773, political agitation in the colonies had in great measure subsided. The ministry had abandoned its design of transporting Americans to England for trial. The people were prosperous, loyal to the king, considered themselves as fellow subjects with Britons, and indignantly repelled the idea of severing their political connection. The king, however, was obstinately bent upon maintaining the supreme authority of Parliament to make laws binding on the colonies in all cases whatsoever. He was unfortunate in having for his chief advisor Lord North, who sought to please the king even against his own better judgment. He was still more unfortunate in North's colleagues, Mansfield, Sandwich, Germain, Wedderburn, and Thurlow, violent or corrupt men, wholly unfit for the grave responsibilities they had assumed. Governor Hutchinson asserts that when the intelligence first came to Boston, it caused no alarm. The threepenny duty had been paid the last 2 years without any stir, and some of the great friends to liberty had been importers of tea. The body of the people were pleased with the prospect of drinking tea at less expense than ever. The only apparent discontent was among the importers of tea, as well as those who had been legal importers from England, as others who had illegally imported from Holland, and the complaint was against the East India Company for monopolizing a branch of commerce which had been beneficial to a great number of merchants. The circular letter of the Massachusetts Committee of Correspondence of October 21, 1773, by which time the public sentiment against the new regulation had been thoroughly aroused, said of it, "It is easy to see how aptly this scheme will serve both to destroy the trade of the colonies and increase the revenue. How necessary, then, it is that each colony should take effectual methods to prevent this measure from having its designed effects." There we'll stop for today. Make it a great day, and bye for now.